and welcome to another episode of the Tell Not Show. As always, we are your hosts. We have the lovely Kirsha Fox, who is the author of newly released Son of Deception, beautiful cover, and homeschool mom of four and avid gamer.
Yes. And this is Julia J.K. Allen. She is an editor, author, and author coach. She is a fantasy and horror author who loves to put magic in everything. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, and we're very excited to welcome our guest on, T.L.L. Quick.
Born in 1962 in an outbound city of Chicago, T.L.L. Quick has degrees in applied science, a bachelor's in business, and a master's in divinity. T considers his faith and family to be the most important to him, and if he isn't spending time with his family and friends, you can almost always find him reading his favorite fantasy novels or cheering on his beloved Chicago Cubs. With 108 years between championships, he was happy to be alive to see one. That's probably why he loves fantasy novels.
Welcome on.
Hi. It's
So
true
great to
about the Cubs. You go 108 years rooting, just to see. You got to have something.
Right,
It's all I got.
right.
I don't know.
I'm in Michigan, so you can understand. I can totally relate with the Lions, right? So we've
That's
had
oh
some
my.
rough seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I lived in
yeah.
Chicago for about 5 years. I actually got to go to a Cubs game. So that was kind of fun.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
that's awesome.
here right now, I got to tell you, I live in the enemy territory now in
Oh
St.
no.
Louis.
Oh
Tough,
no.
tough times,
Yes.
Cubs, Cardinals. Ah,
Right, right. It's hard to be a fan in enemy territory.
it just doesn't matter. Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We're so excited to have you.
I tell you,
Um,
I have been looking forward to this for weeks.
oh, good, good. So glad. Yes. Tell us a little bit about your writing journey. Like, what got you started as a writer?
Wow. I've really got it goes back to when I really started reading
Hmm.
as a child, back picking up the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lord of the Rings, the Chronicles of Prydain, which is the Black Cauldron and stuff like that. It took me to a world that was amazing because I wasn't always the cool kid. Um, so always found myself at times being the last one picked. So I ended up going to stories, and I ended up loving these stories so much as I got older. I kept telling myself, well, I've got stories in my head and I've got to write. And I finally pulled the trigger, as they say, and and wrote because I was finding things that on reading was like, okay, that's okay, that's okay. You always say, oh, I can do better than that, and
Hmm.
I just kind of went either put up or shut up. And so at age 58, I kicked in gear and finished it, and now I'm 60. So I'm late into the blooming author world.
Oh, not at all. You're in good company. There's plenty
Mhm.
of authors and people I feel who started their life and their career in one area and have
Right.
found their way to writing, and I think you're right on track.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. And again, it's just these stories that we grow up with, and how they
Mm.
do actually shape everything you do. It's hilarious, because I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings and
Oh
Tolkien.
yes.
And see, so they really do. When I looked to start writing stuff, I really looked at them because that was, I just loved everything they did.
Yeah, no,
I
Tolkien's
know that's
great.
corny. Everybody picks them, but it's true.
I know. I was really happy when you brought up the Black Cauldron series. That is an
Oh,
absolute personal
oh my
favorite.
gosh, did I ever love that?
Yes.
What a series of books. It doesn't get enough attention at all.
Mm-mm.
No, it doesn't. And I am familiar with the animated movie they made, but I'm not familiar with the book, so that's something I'm definitely gonna have to check out because that's such a
Oh,
lovely
they are
story,
absolutely
the movie.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
the movie adaptation falls under how most movie adaptations
Right.
are, where they sort of kind of have similarities, but they're really not the same thing at all.
No, no,
Right.
I think unfortunately the movie on that series kind of missed quite a bit of the really heart and soul of that
Mm,
book, that whole book
Absolutely.
series. So
right.
I'll encourage anybody, whatever age, to actually pick that series up. It's just such a wonderful read. I don't
Mhm.
whatever age you are, it's just so enjoyable.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of reading younger literature as an adult because I feel like you just get so much more out of it. Even if you have read and loved it, you're going to glean something still valuable from reading it as from an adult perspective.
Mhm.
Because I was kind of a really pedantic child, and I skipped a lot of the classics for kids as a kid because I was reading in a higher level, so I wanted to read, the adult books, and I I was so, like I said, it's kind of, I cringe when I think of like little Julia, who is just like so pedantic.
I love it.
Yes. But so you write in fantasy then. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about why you chose that genre.
Well, I think again, being when I was younger too, looking for that escape,
Mhm.
fantasy just offered such a magical world, a place to be that uh, wasn't quite like home and gave me something more to dream to see. And so I have always just been a great fan of that. And matter of fact, I'll tell you, fantasy, I love dark fantasy, meaning no spice. So, well, that one probably even more, because where dark fantasy, your trope, the good guy can actually lose or the bad guy can actually win,
Mm.
and I like having that tension and that excitement, that you're on the edge going, well, will your hero win? And if they do win, what was the cost? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I just love that stuff. And of course, how can you go wrong with dragons or trolls or elves or just gotta love that.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a huge fan of fantasy. I do love classics and the other genres as well, but reading fantasy as a teenager for the first time, like, really just broadened my mind because I was just like, there can be dragons? Like, what? Like, it was a very magical experience for me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, it just it really does. And I've had and I won't get too much in, but I had a fairly tragic childhood, and
Mm,
that
Mhm.
really um I, I I'm gonna say in many ways saved me
yeah.
from doing things that you instead of getting to drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. What did I do? Hey, give me Tolkien, give me Lewis, give me,
Right,
you know,
right.
Yes.
Piers Anthony, you
Oh
know,
gosh, yes.
and of course, as older, how can you go wrong with the Harry Potters and then of
Mhm.
course my background, being a computer engineer. I worked with the government for many many years before I became a pastor, and so I got into to Ludden, the Bourne series,
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that. And again, I just from taking the child, it just that bit of escapism, I suppose we
Mm.
all need every now
Mhm.
and then, and that's really kind of sums up me.
Mhm. I think that's
Yeah.
why we love the story of Matilda so much is because it resonates with us, being
Mhm.
children in a less than ideal situation and finding worlds and friends within our
Mhm.
books, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
Right. And I love it because it's just like it's not just about escapism, but it's like seeing the big stakes, but seeing people
Mhm.
overcome struggles in fiction. That's so inspiring for us. Yeah.
You can find the greatest truths in a fiction setting.
Mhm.
They're
And that's why I encourage people to continue right because it often, and I love your point, Julie. It's that um, there's hope
Mm,
within your
mhm.
heroes.
Right.
Even if there's a little bit of tragedy, there is still hope because life, has that tragic stuff around it.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're at a place, you kind of need that, knowing um, that you can make it. And even if
Right.
it's just grabbing a hope of that turning to page 2, 3, then 4, and just chapter after chapter, realizing that, you know, I can be okay because my hero was okay. I can, and
Mm.
it's
Mhm.
there's a truth to that.
Mhm.
Right. Right. Yeah, it helps us feel not so alone when sometimes our circumstances
Mhm.
make us feel
Mhm.
alone. You see other people
Absolutely.
going through stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your writing process? How do you begin a story?
Oh, sure. I guess overall, I'm a plotter. I was really
Mhm,
thinking about this, because at first I'm going, I'm a hybrid, both pantser plotter, and I really
Hmm.
started thinking my process. No, actually, I'm a plotter by heart. What I do, one of my things I do to start a story. Matter of fact, of the series that I'm on now, um, I use a thing called mind mapping. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh, I tell you, I'm a big fan of mind mapping. Okay, so for all who don't know that,
mhm,
you can. Here's how I did my process, and it also helped me find out how many books was in the series.
Mm.
You have overall, you have that wonderful dream in your head, and you've got quasi the story, and then you finally sit down. And go, okay, so what am I going to do? So what I do is I actually start on paper, and I take paper, and the first page is I draw three circles, beginning, middle, end. And I go, okay, give a rough statement of what the beginning is, where I want to be in the middle of the story, whether it's one book or 100 books, it doesn't matter. The middle, you
Right.
really want to pick a middle point. And then where do I want to be at the end? And when I get that for myself, and I kind of get my start, yep, I want to start in this little town. I want kind of I'm going to introduce, in my case, I'm going to introduce my bad guy right away because there's something I want, my antagonist, I want to point out quickly. My middle,
Hmm.
I want there to be a true, true tension of one of my characters. And at the end, of course, then wrapping everything up to, finally bring fruition to the entire story. And then what I
Right.
do from there is then I get another page. Now that I know what I want, then I start going, okay, how many things do I need to accomplish to fill that? And I'll start putting these little circles in between the three and going, well, I'll do that. And well, I need this to happen, then the middle, then this to happen to get to the end. And that defines for me how many books. So I actually had ended up having five major plot that I wanted to accomplish. And each one represented book one, book two, book three, book four, book five.
Oh,
And
okay.
then from there, I'll take the first circle and break it down and put it on in single paper, and I'll start drawing lines out. And these lines are going to represent chapters, how I want and what I want to accomplish from the prologue to the epilogue, or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So I could, in this case, book one of mine, I had 28 chapters plus a prologue and an epilogue, and so I had 28 marks, and in each little circle there I wanted to, I put something on there to accomplish, either was by my main characters or my antagonist or something that I felt that really needed to happen. And what that does for me, it
Hmm.
allows me to actually then take this really creative, crazy mind of mine and start going, walking this road between plot holes or between marks on my mind map. It keeps me focused going towards a direction, but it
Right.
doesn't necessarily keep me bound where I can't be really creative and go, wait a minute, would my character really do that? I need to adjust that a little bit. And so
Hmm.
I'm a big mind mapper. I truly love that process.
Yeah. That sounds very.
sounds
I
very
I
organized.
don't. Yeah. I don't do quite the same, but I have kind of the same a similar process where I will like maybe use index cards instead of mapping it out on paper and switch them around. But one thing I love to do that it feels like you have a similar thing you're doing is like making a goal when I sit down of being like in this chapter I'm going to develop this relationship or I'm going to add a plot device or this or that. But knowing what I'm doing has really helped me to like kind of prevent getting stuck. um, so
Yes.
yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, I have to do that. I really do. But again, but also, what I like about it, because then I can step back and take a
Mhm.
look, because I'll take what I've done with a chapter and I'll kind of put it there again and go, okay, here I made it from that road to this road, or from that town, or that relationship to this action.
Mhm.
And I kind of look and going, and then I can sit back and let my creative mind just go nuts again, going, okay, is that truly telling the story that I want to get out? for me, that helps me out a lot then because I don't mind erasing. Get rid of that
Right.
circle. We're
Right.
gonna do this, and
Yeah.
so for me, then I can get that kind of painter thing going and let my characters speak for themselves. And I
Hmm.
like to have these crazy conversations, which I know you two have in your
Right.
head. Um, I just have a whole lot of fun with it.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, it's I think people think when you plot ahead of time or make an outline that you kind of are forced to stick with it. But no, absolutely not. If you get a
Mhm.
better idea or you get to know your characters better and therefore come up with something more organic, absolutely change it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yes.
Yeah,
mark
for
it in
me,
the
that allows that
department.
organic stuff to happen.
Right.
Because if I start thinking crazy things, and for me, it I find that it doesn't flow as well. It doesn't fit
Right.
with the story. And it's like, well, okay, that's a different book, you know.
Right. Right.
But when I do that little mind map, my little road for me, it keeps me goal orientated,
Right.
getting the flow. But I'm not afraid to step back and go, wait a minute, like you said, here's a better idea. This works so much
Right.
better, and
Yeah.
letting my characters talk.
Yeah.
Having all those conversations in my head,
Mhm.
several arguments, and
Yes.
Right, right. Like if you're going on a road trip, you're gonna kind of, some people have more of an idea of like where they want to stop and what roads they want to take, but you
Mhm.
absolutely do take detours and stuff along the way when you see
Mhm.
something
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
I feel like a
Oh, I like.
film director sometimes of, okay, guys, everyone at the like, let's take it from the top and try it again. That wasn't quite resonating. Let's
Right,
get it
yeah.
right.
going this time,
Yeah, yeah. So one thing we like to do with our guests before we have them on is talk to them about what they view as their strengths. And you talked about keeping your characters true to themselves. So what do you mean by that? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Actually, for me, that's probably the most important thing for me about my story. And I mean, everybody has their important, and I'm not saying this is the biggest one, but for me, if I can have the greatest plot twist, the greatest cliffhangers. I can
Hmm.
do this incredible world building. But if the character doesn't resonate, one, with the surroundings, two, with the reader, in a very true way, your book's going to fall flat. It won't
Hmm.
be as exciting. So, when I mean by true to character, what is this? And I think I wrote this to you, but it really is a good example. If I've got a main character that cannot swim,
Hmm.
um, I've got a choice when I come to a body of water. If I felt so driven, I've got to be at, Lake Michigan, you
Right.
know, uh, and I'm going to put my character out there. Okay, my character can't swim. What I don't like to see in books that kind of drive me away, it doesn't draw me in. I don't
Hmm.
feel attached or even wanting to put my more effort into reading the books when a character all of a sudden, hey, this miracle happened, I can swim, and I kind of go, missed an opportunity of either
Mm.
in your story making tension. Um, if you write comedy, flaws in characters, that's where the comedy lies, is the
Right.
whole flaw. But if I also make this character swim, and it's like, okay, where'd that come from? And as a reader, when I want to find hope, I actually want to find a character that's got to figure out how he's crossing Lake Michigan and can't swim.
Right.
Give me that story, give me that, and then stay true through the rest of the book, unless something is driven that this character now must learn at all costs to swim. Well, then you make it a part of the story, and then that's okay. But don't just all of a sudden, hey, flight or fight. I swam. No, you drowned. You know.
Right. Right. It's that that
Did that make sense? Does that?
oh,
I know it makes sense in my head. I don't know how that came across to you too.
yeah, no, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but it's like that Deus ex machina ending where like the gods or fate steps in and magically solves everything. Like you happen to suddenly have this innate knowledge of swimming.
Yeah, it's like, oh, where did this come from? You know. Yeah, and
Right,
where's
right.
where I really find where I don't like it most is, believe it or not, is in your antagonist.
Mhm.
I find because I do dark fantasy and I got an evil character, um, also with flaws or within character development, and being true to the character. I find sometimes your really bad guy, he does this evil thing here and goes
Mhm.
on, and next thing he does this insane evil thing, and I'm left going, how did he get there? I mean, he
Right,
was only doing this and now he's, burning down, entire towns when he
right.
was just stealing cocoa.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Give me a little something that helps me. And again, that's being true to your character, whether it's
Mhm.
flaws or powers or magic, and I find a lot of it happens with magic. When you run these magic,
Mm.
all of a sudden this character then, I can conjure dragons. Okay, how'd you do that? When did you learn
Right,
that? Did
right.
you just forget to
Mhm.
tell us? So being true to character is really, really important to me. And so I
Mhm.
always look at my characters and go, okay, I go back, okay, he can't do this. Okay, this one can
Right.
do that. Okay, so make it a companionship or whatever. So
Mhm. It's important to keep our
Yeah.
characters consistent.
yeah, I think for me, it's for me, it's probably the most important when I go to read a book.
Right.
If I cannot resonate with the characters in some way or not get lost within that character that I've started to grow to love, eh, I fall away from the story and I tend not to finish the
Right.
book. I don't know how you all do that. I'm curious what you do. Think of that whole character building and maintaining true to the character.
I would agree with you because, life's too short to read books that you are not in love with, right? Because there's so many good books out there
Oh God,
and
yes.
Mhm.
for every different person. But yes, one thing that I really relate to in books is the characters, right? So, like you were saying, you can have an amazing plot, you can have explosions and car chases and everything exciting, you can have dragons and all of that. But if you don't have characters that feel real to you, then it kind of falls a little flat.
Right, right.
So I 100% would agree that it's really important to have stakes, to have flaws in your characters, because
Mhm.
that's one big thing that will make me not finish a book is when it's the perfect character and she's good at everything. Like women aren't allowed to make music, but she can not only play a violin, but she can make it like artisan style from the tree,
Virtuoso.
like yeah. And she's just like blows everyone else away with her amazing talent, and it's just like, oh, okay, like is there anything she's not good at, because she's going to win every challenge and obstacle she comes against, so why should I bother reading about it?
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah, no, no, I think it's important for us to, if you've got a kryptonite,
Hmm.
keep it. Keep the kryptonite because I find that makes the true story. It
Right.
it it gives shape and form to our characters that you absolutely fall in love with those flaws. And because when at the end of the day you look at yourself and you go through life in reality, I'm full of flaws and
Right.
but I kind of like myself anyway.
Okay.
Right. We all have limitations. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we like to see that in our characters
I
too.
do. I do. What else can I answer for? I don't. I
Okay.
really do love this topic, and it really is important to me in my book that I do this, and
Mm.
it does. It really is a driving factor that actually when because I started my book series when COVID kicked into gear, and I
Right.
ended up not being able to do my job. So as a chaplain, and I said, okay, I'll make sure everybody can check in, check their temperature. We did that whole thing, and what was interesting, and during this time, I was really able to get close to all the people that I work with, and that brought out a whole lot of flaws in characters and people,
Right.
and, I won't lie to you, it gave me a lot of ideas, uh,
Right.
but it really did, but it really brought me back to why I wanted to write and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and what I wanted to put into my writing and into my
Right.
stories, and even though it's fantasy, in this case, our fantasy, I still wanted it to ring true. I wanted conversations to ring true, and to have conversations, there's natural characteristics about each person, and I
Right.
wanted to have that also um, ring true. So I also want to try it in my conversation. I was really working hard to keep that for each character, too. It's just amazing once you start thinking about that process and
Right.
whatnot on keeping true characters. There's so much throughout when you do your book that you've got to remember. Take
Right.
lots
So
of
do you
notes.
have a process for figuring out and getting to know your characters? Like, how do you get that quick essence of a character?
Mhm.
Wow. I with the characters I have, I some of them are, believe it or not, are I've taken ideas of some of my friends,
Mhm.
and I know we all do this. And you just there's just something about this friend here that, ooh, very bold, very confident in himself, and another
Mhm.
person. Well, here's I've got a friend who's absolutely brilliant, but as shy as can be, and like, oh, that would make a good character, and
Right.
so a lot of it, I get it, is from the people around me because reality is a lot more fantasy than we realize because you
Oh,
can't make this
yeah.
stuff up. You meet
Right.
people,
Right.
okay, I can't. Oh, but that would make a great character, and so I'll take notes and of things that I like, or I don't know about you too. I people watch. I know that sounds so
Mhm.
weird, but
It
I
does not.
do. I
Many of the
people
authors we
watch.
have interviewed have said they people watch.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where I get my I'll be honest, that's where I get my best characters, it's like, "Oh, hey."
Right. No, I love that idea of looking in on somebody else and their situation and just kind of extrapolating like what you think is going on in the situation. I think as an author we do that a lot. But I even wrote a story about it in my fiction writing class in college where we had to write a story from like three different points of view. So it was like the point of view of two exes meeting up to like return property. Like, here's your shirt that you wanted, you jerk. And she looks all nice and she's all dressed up. And so they kind of rekindle. And then there's like the author character in the background that's watching this awkward first date. But it was just so interesting to play around with because I often think like when we are people watching, we're kind of creating these narratives and stories. And we have no idea if it's true, but it's so fun for us.
"Hey, it looked good in my head." It's like,
Right, right, yeah. So I love that because I'm just like, yeah, probably when I'm the author character, obviously. So like, well, I'm seeing stuff and I'm like, oh, what a funny first date. They're being so awkward with each other, and then yeah, you find the real story.
do you okay, I got a question. Do you 2 find that when you see that and then you put yourself in the midst and go, "Well, I would have done," or try
Mm,
to do you do that? I do. I find myself doing that is I catch a situation where it doesn't matter if female, male, it doesn't matter, and I see something, then I kind of put myself in there and trying to think, okay, what would I feel? What would I
Mhm.
mhm.
do? And so I find I do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Again, this
I
is this is the first time I actually could ask somebody else this question that could go, "Oh, I get what you're talking about."
right,
Yes.
right,
I have a little
yeah.
commentator in my brain that goes, "Oh, that was a rookie move. Will it pay off?" You know?
Oh, I love that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a natural transition from a reader to a writer because we do that and we say like, "Oh, if I were telling this story, I would have had this happen." So then we get to the
Mhm.
point where we're just like, "Why don't I tell a story and see if I can do it a little better?"
Mhm.
So
Wow. I love
yeah.
it.
Sometimes we get inspiration from stuff, and what we come up with
Right.
is completely, absolutely, like, has no resemblance to the thing that inspired it. But that's what we do
Mm-hmm.
is we take something and completely just rework it
Right.
into our own version of something new. Yes.
I and there's just so many great stories when you do that,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
because we're by nature as writers and readers, avid readers, there is a creativity
Mm-hmm.
in all of us that we just thrive
Right.
within that, those worlds that we either create or the worlds that we walk into. So, yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you. I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Love
There's so
it
many
too.
parts to love. Do you have a favorite
Mm-hmm.
part of writing?
Yeah, yeah. I think my favorite part of writing is seeing. I'm going to say it in this way: my world come together.
Mm,
Um, if I've had this movie running in my head for years and years, and I've decided, okay, do it, and start seeing it take shape and enjoying the smells of the fields that really aren't there, but I sure can smell
mhm.
it because I'm putting it down, and that whole take from your creative mind, putting it into a form that can be seen, and then hopefully people smell the same flower I just planted, or taste
Right.
that sweet apple that I just plucked, and people can, hoping that people see the same world and love the same world that I have. So I like that process of making that come to life. There we go. That's my really
Yeah.
is my favorite part.
Absolutely, and I love that we have the the communication skills and the writing that we can
Mhm.
do that and take the image and the world we have in our head and share that with others. So I
Right.
think that's like the best part of writing is that we can experience the same kind of stories and heartbreaks and joys with each other by sharing these stories. Do you have a least favorite part to writing?
Uh okay, it's within the editing process. It's not editing, believe it or not. I know this is weird. Okay. I think the least part is here I've written this great stuff that I think is phenomenal,
Mhm.
and then get back going, you should get rid of this character. Really doesn't do anything for your story. And it's like, no,
Right, my child,
who's
right.
my favorite non-player character? You can't do that to Bob. What's he gonna
Right.
think? What about his family? You know, um, because you think
Right.
this is the greatest thing since sliced
Right,
bread, and
right.
all of a sudden your editor's going, well, Terry, um, nice writing job. Like the way you use your verbs, but this part sucks.
Right, right.
So I'll
Oh,
take it, and I got a lot of character in my writing desk over here of characters that I'm going, oh, I'm saving you. I don't know what I'm
Right.
going to do with you, but you are being
yes.
saved.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Nothing for me gets thrown away. Anytime I pull out any significant chunk of writing, I put it in a separate document that I can either recycle later or
Mhm.
use for inspiration or yeah,
Yeah,
nothing
so
Yep.
my least favorite is stripping away things that I thought one was brilliant. But the fact is, let's face it, it's like your child. You know that. You
Right.
you
Yeah.
both know
Yes.
what I'm talking about. You gave birth to this. You shaped and you had conversation. You dressed
Mhm.
the character, and the character did things and completed something you wanted him to complete, or her to complete, or they, depending on a group. And all of a
Mm.
sudden, they don't make the cut.
Right,
And
right.
here you put all that energy. I don't know. Do you guys feel deflated a little bit when that happens?
I think that's a natural reaction. I try to view it because I don't delete anything. Like Kirsha, I put everything in a separate doc I call leftovers.
Mhm.
But I feel that by doing that, it allows me to I don't see it as wasted words, right? Because we have to practice words in order to be great at telling stories. So the
Mhm.
more practice I get, the better I
Mhm.
will be when I'm in the game, right? So I try to view it as that, but otherwise, yeah, because otherwise it could be just like, oh, but I spent so much time and effort making Bob so awesome with his red hat in the background, and like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I'm
it
with
can be
you.
a little heartbreaking.
The
I
only
do.
time I get upset about it myself, sorry to interrupt, I did it
Oh,
again.
you're
Oh,
fine.
no,
The only
go, go,
time I get
go.
mad is when I've written chapters and chapters and then I'm like, that's a plot hole. That's a plot hole. There's,
Right.
oh my God. Like, I'm like, everything I based this off of cannot exist. So like it gets cut.
That's when
It
it's
doesn't
Oh,
matter how good
frustrating,
it
yeah.
was. There's no way that character would do that, or they couldn't swim, and I had them swimming, but they can't, so I have to put them back back on
Right,
the
back
page.
at the
oh,
start.
So I
Yeah.
have had to rewind several times and take it a different path. And But what I have found is that my writing is so much better for it. So I
Right.
try not to be that angry with myself.
Yeah,
But
well, in practice, as a what's the term? Practice makes perfect. I mean, you're going to
Right.
keep. We're going to write, and we're going to rewrite, and we're going to write some more. And like I said, I agree with you. I, it'll never go to waste. And some
Mhm.
of the things I find that my editor took out of my first book was good. It just didn't quite fit. And here's one for everybody to do because I have my website and I'm having my artist make pictures of my characters, and so I'm going to use it as like backstory. So some of the
Oh, that's
stuff
a brilliant idea.
um, I would tell authors and anybody out there again, it helps keep the character true, and there's a little bit of investment of backstory that okay, maybe it doesn't make the book, but you know people are going to ask you, hey, that guy in the red hat, what
Right.
were you really thinking? And all of a sudden, hey, I've got my backstory. So
Right.
I'm working really hard to take some things that are I feel that are good, and I'm going to make them some of my backstory, and
Yeah, the
actually
behind the
put
scenes.
on my yeah, put it on my website, and they can little drop down to that character. Oh, didn't know that. Maybe it
Brilliant.
doesn't
No,
make the
that's
cut, but it works great on my website.
mhm.
a brilliant idea. I love that. I will say that I give editing a little bit more grace because I am an editor for other people as well. So that's why I have such a cheery outlook on editing because I'm like, oh, but it if it helps the story in the end to polish it a little better. But I
Yeah,
love that idea of taking those snippets that you worked hard to figure out and using them as extra bonus material for readers.
sure. Because you know they're gonna ask. I mean, what is it now, come on, don't tell me you don't when you watch movies, do you
Right.
all watch the extended scenes?
Oh yeah.
Please, right?
Of course.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I buy the big bulky disc for
Right.
that extra stuff. I mean, I've got Lord of the Rings was an extra 3 hours. I mean, who does this? I
Who doesn't
do.
watch the extended version?
Right.
Like,
Right. Gotta watch it
Yeah,
at least once, right? Yeah. We
yeah,
gotta
the
you gotta
first
see
one. We
everything we can
couldn't.
see in the world.
yeah.
Um, what writing advice do you really like that you would if you were meeting a newer author that you would feel comfortable sharing with them?
I think one that centers for me is write your story.
Mhm.
Uh, Plain, simple, because there's I have a saying that I Julie, I might even threw it on and you may even caught that or on there. I tell people when on TikTok and stuff, and I encourage people to continue to write stories because I make this statement: your story is worth the tell. And
Mhm.
there's so much truth that because no one can write this story better than you. This is your world, your characters, your people. Um, it's it's something that you can bring to me and like no one else can. So for me, write your story.
Right.
Don't worry about hey, this is not the hottest thing going right now. Well, who says that? I don't know. After you write your story, it doesn't become the hottest thing. Number one,
Right.
um, and number two, it's why are we judging these incredible books, these incredible authors, because it's not the in thing, and not looking at truly that gift that was just given for us to enjoy and have and all the thousands of hours that get worked. My favorite was ever told to me is write your story.
Mhm.
Don't worry about anybody else.
Yes, yes. I think that's a great outlook to have. A lot of people kind of panic and are like trying to write to market or write to trends.
Mhm.
But as you said, like if you have a great story and you can, only you can tell it, so that's a great thing to focus on.
Writing to market and writing with the
Right.
trends isn't necessarily wrong, but you
Mhm.
do have to sit down and go like, am I truly telling the stories that are in my heart? Like, am I
Right.
bringing myself joy in this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will never say you can't write to market at
Yes.
all, but even writing to market, there's still your story. I mean,
Mhm.
because if
Right.
you don't bring your story out, aren't we just copying something that was done over here that
Right.
made this market hot, and we're ended up retelling the same story instead of
Mhm.
what you can bring to that. Why you can going to market can make it something special and still be
Right.
market. There's you can do that. It's not our issue. Um,
Right.
I guess I don't know if I'll ever per se write to market. Uh,
Mhm.
but then again, I don't know. I guess fantasy is always a market, isn't it? So
Yeah, and once you find your audience, they'll always be interested in your type of stories. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
everyone finds their little niche.
A lot of the bigger publishers, they'll be like, "Hey, we're looking for mermaid books, or we're looking for
Right, right,
no, they're a little more trend sensitive.
right.
Whereas indie authors have more freedom to write what we want to write.
Yeah. And
yeah.
and that's why I will support indie authors. It's just because I think there's just too much to bring out
Mhm.
that is not here in the market that now I think indie authors are fulfilling, um, and bringing forth, um, things that haven't been done in years because it's so passe, or
Mm,
maybe
right,
that one new thing that no one's ever thought about, but because the marketing or traditional publishing, well, we're not ready for that. Okay,
right.
okay, that's great, but maybe I'll say, they may be not ready for that because they're really looking at in the and I get it, it's a business. Let's not forget that, and it's a
Mhm,
good business. I'll never knock that.
mhm,
Um, but when does it become something? Hey, we're going
Right,
to start a whole new thing, and when
right.
are we going to take the risk? And I think indie authors bring that to the
Mhm.
table and is fulfilling the need of those stories that would have never ever made it to
Right.
print. So I'm such a big fan.
Yeah, we are as well. um, so you've talked about obvious influences in your writing being Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. What
Mhm.
else influences your writing? Or do you want to
Uh,
elaborate on
well, yeah, no, I can. I'll make this sweet because I did have such a tragic. I haven't lived with my parents since I've been 7 years old. Got
that?
moved to place to place. I was abused. Things that happened to me should never happen to a child. Um, and I would get lost into these incredible books. I'm one that looks at I could either take what happened to me in life and make it oh woe's me and never ever climb out. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, so many people go through that. Or I can climb out and realize there's so much more to me. And what happened with these stories is that they inspired me. The heroes in the books made it out of their trouble. And some
Mhm.
of those troubles were much more, tragic than mine. And I'm going, hey, if this character can do it, I can do it. And
Mhm.
that inspiration of getting out of where I was to something so much better is also what inspires me to tell stories. In this
Right.
case, finally getting off my keister and writing the story I wanted to tell, uh, with the tragedies and the laughter and the adventure and all that.
Right.
So that, believe it or not, it really is an inspiration. And a lot of people might not look at that and put the word inspiration to that. I
Mhm.
do. I do
Right.
indeed because I'm not going to deny what I went through, but I'm not going to let what I went through hold me back ever. Matter of fact, I'm
Right.
going to go, no, you might think it's a weakness. I'm making it a strength. And therefore, this story is worth to tell and do that. And the other thing that inspired me outside of my great readers was um, my brother-in-law, Scott, my best friend. He passed away just a couple of years ago. Um, but he and I, we love the same stories. We love the same movies, and we became
Mhm.
best friends. And then I met his sister and married her. So
Yeah.
it was yeah, it was a lot of fun. I tell you, really.
Yeah.
And and just we would have great conversations about authors, about stories, about epic scenes or something, and And if you look at my first book, I dedicate it to Scott, and I
Mm.
do put in it. He is my inspiration. One of my wife is my other one. She is such. Without her, oh my gosh, I couldn't tie my shoes. And right now, if you could see my feet, I don't have any shoes or socks on, in my room here. So, my wife obviously didn't help me finish dressing. But so true. I tell you, I know, horrible. But Scott really was one that inspired me to. Because when I started putting it together, he was going, "Hey Terry, you've got to finish the story." And
Mhm.
unfortunately, he had passed away before I got it to print. But he was such an inspiration, and my wife, who believes in me, um,
Mm.
those two are heart and soul for me. If you know, and I hope
Right.
people have such an experience I have and able to make it good, and then have the people in their lives to help you make
Right.
it even better.
Hmm.
Yes, it's so important to have a good support system,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to like, because writing is the easiest thing and the hardest thing for us, right? So,
Hmm.
it's great to have that support system. And I'm sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing your stories with us. So, I think that one of the things I love about reading the stories of people overcoming difficulties is also that they have like friends along the way. Like that's one of the great things about the Lord of the Rings is you have his friend Samwise.
Oh, Samwise
Samwise,
is one of my
the whole
favorite characters.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Like just
Yeah.
that.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yes, the best friend energy. I loved it, but I loved reading stories like that because it was just like it showed you what great friendship can help you do.
Right. And again, I'll tell you too, because being, our whole topic of this is keeping your characters true.
Mm,
Um, that's where honestly I go to the people who support me because I realize I can't do it on my own. And
right.
that's not a bad thing. It's looking to others going, just because I can't do this doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just
Right.
means I got to figure out how I'm getting all across this lake because I can't swim. Well, hey,
Right.
my buddy Scott's got a boat. Done.
Right.
Let's go across
Right.
that water,
Right.
or,
Yeah.
yeah. So I look at, and keeping courage true again, it's part of the people who inspire me.
Mm,
Because this journey I went through and just every part of this whole process, even editing, I actually loved. I
right.
truly have. And it's because they were there and,
Right.
and they're going to be there for me. And
Mhm.
that's being true. So
Right.
that's why that's important to me too. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
Thank you.
Yes. One thing we like to ask people is, how do you deal with writer's block? Is it a problem for you?
Oh, so I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
We like to ask people how you deal with writer's block. Is it ever a problem for
Oh,
you?
oh my gosh. Okay. I read that question. I'm going, I hope they're ready for this one. Um, oh my God. You ready for it? Okay. Cause there's two parts where I call writer's block. Okay.
Mhm.
Writer's block in the midst of your story. Okay. Where do I
Mhm.
go next? Or how do I this? And then writer's block where I want to write a story, but what's my story? Okay. The writer's block with in the midst of my story where you kind of going, okay, I got up to here, can't. Here's what I do. I actually start having conversations with my characters.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Uh, I ask them questions. Where are you? What are you feeling? What's going on? What's the problem? Why can't, and actually have good and then turn around, answer those questions the way that only I know about this character and remain true to it. And all of a sudden, I don't have writer's block. Um, because then it's like, wait a minute. Oh, this is the problem. This character is you know, having a hard time because he's missing his family. And what am I going to do about that? Because that's part of the reason he went off on this adventure in the first place, or to
Mhm.
find something to help the family, or I have conversation with sub characters uh, for the same thing to add more to this story. So I just talk to the characters in the book and I find the answers they actually give me. It's a funny process I do and actually enjoy it. course, if somebody walks in the room and I'm having these conversations, doesn't bode well for the funny farm.
Right.
And then the other thing I do for a story not there, I still do similar things because we talk about writer's block, but you still have an idea. So
Mm,
here's what you do. It doesn't have to be a character. Okay, it doesn't have to be a man, a woman, a child, just a character. Don't put anything more to the character than just a character right now. And then start asking the character questions. What do you look like?
right.
Or, what's this? And all of a sudden, something starts blossoming and you're able to take that creative juice and then go on. That's how I
Mm.
do it.
No, that's
Great answer.
very, very good answer. Yeah, I love that. What has been the most significant writing victory you've had so far?
Oh, holding my book. Oh, I do this because I do it. I have the book, and this
Yeah,
one
show us.
stays on my shelf, and this is the first one. Okay, this is the
Oh.
first one I pulled out of the box, and I go,
Yes.
bam, my
Oh, yes.
book, and it's like this is my book, and the joy that came out of holding that
Mm,
for the first time. And I
right.
will compare it to, because I have a son and daughter, to when I first held my son. He was born first, and then held my daughter for the first time. That's the only thing that's greater,
Right.
of emotional wow.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and that is, and of course, then my wife agreeing to marry me. Still haven't figured that one out, but
Yeah.
I'm taking that as a total victory. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but I mean, but for my writer's thing, like I said, it was opening that box and pulling out that book that's been edited. I mean, I'm
Right.
everything about it, and just holding it. That
Mhm.
was the coolest feeling ever.
It really
For that.
is. Hmm.
So
It
I that
really
book
is.
stays. That book goes nowhere, but right there in
Mhm.
a
Right. Right.
reminder of that. Hey, you actually did something that I forget what the percentage was. There's who actually write books and get them,
Right.
and you two would probably know better than I would. Yeah, I know it's really, really small. It's not 1%, it's
Hmm.
less than
Hmm.
1% of people do what we did. I mean,
Mhm.
Right.
that's
Right.
that's what company. I get to
Yeah.
say, me and Tolkien, we would have been tight. Me and Lewis, tight. That's right.
Well, Tolkien and Lewis were in a writing group, critique group together, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
It was funny because C.S. Lewis actually kept hammering on Tolkien. Hey, just finish the book. It's great. It's just give me the book and let's turn it in. And Tolkien went somewhere. Lewis went into his house, took the manuscript, took it, and got it to an editor. That is my understanding in truth because I've read it. Tolkien wrote about that. How
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
Lewis wrote
Yeah.
That
about that.
story.
Lewis is the one that took it because Tolkien goes, it's not quite ready. Too much of an
Oh,
edit.
yeah.
I
He
don't
was
know.
procrastinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I the funny thing I heard about those two was that Tolkien really got mad that Lewis used mixed metaphors because he was very much like all my mythology is from one place, and C.S. Lewis was just like Turkish word and this word
Oh
and this and
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yes.
both of them are so my
I
heroes in
do what I
both
want.
ways.
Right.
So much fun.
Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine what it was like sitting around the table with those two. Yeah.
I would pay huge amounts just to be in a room for one day. All
Right.
the stuff we would walk away with, and
Right.
because let's
Right.
face it, without and again, there's others, okay, but these
Hmm.
two guys really did shape our our world
Yes.
uh,
Hmm.
when it
Our
comes
world,
to
our
fantasy.
genre.
That whole
Right.
genre, even though you could go, hey, Beowulf and something, right? And it's true, and you can look at the mythos and mythologies,
Mhm.
and you get that, but nobody put it together better than
Right.
at that time. Those now, I will say today, there's so many incredible writers that
Hmm.
I know Lewis and Hogan would be just so proud of. Going, hey, you took our ideas and
Right.
you stepped it up, because
Right.
there's so many books out there that oh, there's not enough time to read. I wish that could be a job. Can
Right.
that please be a job and we get paid for that?
Well,
And when
I
you
mean,
have
I kind of do as an editor. I get to read other
well,
people's stories, so I
okay,
enjoy that
okay, so
part.
you got it there. Okay, you
I
got me.
paid
You got
beta
me.
readers, but I don't know how to get that gig because that'd be
Right.
amazing.
It would be amazing,
As long
yeah.
as there's coffee and a book, you're talking to
Mhm.
Right,
one happy
right.
character right here.
Yeah, yeah. I have to ask you because we keep talking about Lord of the Rings. So I
Mhm.
absolutely love Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
But book two is so much Gollum and Smeagol, and it's just like going back and trying to reread through it all. Like, because the first time you're just like swept up in the story, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
I got to find out what happens next. But going back through and rereading it, I'm just like, I would love to hear your thoughts on Smeagol and Gollum as a character.
I tell you what, first of all, brilliant. You
Okay.
are talking. Oh, think about it. You took a psychopath
Right.
and you got in his mind. And we
Right.
always want the question answered. Okay, could you really tell me what was going on in your head when you did this?
Right.
And I think with those being of the character, you get to see such tragedy. Um,
Mhm.
written so brilliantly well. We you could feel the emotion, the tension when Smeagol would jump into the golem and feel that hatred and
Mm.
driven by and as you're reading more and more trying to find, where does this come from and not realizing
Right.
that it's this outside source, the ring that really but Smeagol had that
He
in
had it
him
in the back of him.
already, you
Yeah, because
know?
I remember like he's like, why does my family hate me, as he's like eavesdropping on them and being sneaky and
Yes.
behind their back and stuff. And it's like, well, you're doing stuff like listening in on their
Whoa,
conversations and
yeah, you're being an evil guy. Stop it. But then when he gets the ring, it
right.
takes it to a level. So I loved the way that whole thing was written out.
Mm-hmm.
I really do love that tension between when Spiegel he's coming up the point, and it looks like, wait a minute, there's hope for him to
Right.
become a good guy. Okay.
Right.
I love that token puts you on the hook. You hook, line, sinker, bobber,
Right.
reel. I
Right.
mean, you're oh yes, he's going to change, and okay, yes he did.
Then
You know,
Faramir comes along.
yeah.
And
But
Faramir, yeah.
oh come on, you
Yeah.
were reeled in and you know it. But wasn't that
Right.
brilliant? I think that
Yeah.
shows a true maturity to writing, willing to write. And if I understand right, he got a lot of that actually from himself when he was in the
Mm.
wars because he had PSD. Well, which they didn't understand
Right.
uh,
Right.
PTSD or the whole post traumatic syndrome
Right.
and what he went through and what to my understanding, he took that and he put it into that character. So there's a really
Oh, yeah.
raw revealing of where he got that.
Right.
And in some ways, you can sit there. It's okay to open up your heart, and you can put it here and be a little bit safer. And it's healthy to actually get it out too.
Mhm.
So,
Right. Right. Writing is
oh
very
wow, what a
therapeutic.
scene! What scenes!
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chapters
Yeah.
were crazy.
Truly
I
a
love it.
master at work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
characters sometimes
Yeah.
are little broken pieces sometimes.
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Right.
Okay, so we like to ask, do you have a favorite book or author and why? I don't know if we've already answered that.
Well, yeah, I obviously
Really
you
fun.
go. I'm going to bring up a book because I was thinking because I saw the question. Okay, yes, Lord of the Rings. That all of it tokens and all of Lewis's, and because I oh man, the Silmarillion, the from Lewis, but I also like the things that Lewis did with Satan and the talk. Oh man,
Mhm.
but I'm going to bring up a book that I could not put down. I had to I devoured it in a day and a half. I was stayed up. The Princess Bride. Have either of you
Oh,
My
two
God, yes.
ever read The
I've
Princess
read
Bride?
it. Yes.
Oh my God. I
Okay.
can't, I could not stop laughing. The,
Yes.
the joy. And my favorite part of that whole book is when the author stops and starts talking to you as the
mhm.
author.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay,
brilliant.
he writes it as an abridgment, right? He's like,
Yes.
I'm abridging it, and he'll go and like, so the next few chapters really aren't worth reading. It's a lot of history, and it's
A
really
lot of
boring.
kissing
Here's what
and
you
I've
need to
got to,
Right,
and
know.
right.
my
Let's
editor
move
had to
on.
take it out. But if you want it, you can write to this address and I'll send it to you. Oh my, I don't think I have laughed so hard
Right,
uh,
right.
a book.
It
So
was
that
brilliant.
is generally, that is, I tell people about this book all the time. You want to laugh, you want to have something, um, you got
Right.
your fantasy and be light-hearted, but yet still have
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
that, hero and, sword
Depth to
play
it.
and,
Mhm.
Princess Bride. What a brilliant, brilliant book. And for the life
Right.
of me right now, you ready for this? I can't get the author's name out of my head. Oh,
William
Oh,
Gold
no! Google
something.
it.
oh, I mean, somebody Google that. Princess
Right.
Bride, definitely.
William Goldman.
Cool. Ah,
William
Yes.
there we go.
Goldman. I
Yes.
got
There we go.
it.
Yes,
Almost
that
there.
is. I tell you now. There's a book worth reading,
Right.
and I thought it was so well done, and point of view, and just the way took the characters and made them silly,
Mhm,
yet you could see in that silliness, in all that there was some truth to it. There was
mhm.
stuff that you could see past the
Right.
characters, and um, I don't. I just fell in love with that book. So there you go, Princess Bride,
Okay.
and of course,
Good
Lord of the Rings
recommendation.
and Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then our last question we love to ask people is, what is writing advice you hate?
I'll go with the absolute opposite of write your story within. And again, because you're right, you can write to market. That's not what I'm talking about.
Mm,
When somebody tells you you have to do this, and that's the only way you could be consider yourself an author. You've got to
right.
write to market, and you're not an author if you can't do it because you'll never make money. And it's kind of
Mm,
like talk about stabbing the creativity, the soul within, the love of storytelling, uh,
right.
destroying the story that is worth the tell. I don't like that, and I've seen it too much. I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it on
Mm,
Google, and I will encourage and support. Hey, you can write to market, but make it your story.
right,
Uh,
right,
and don't worry about if your genre is not quite the top 10.
right,
Tell the story because maybe just your story will make it the number one. So
right.
so again, the opposite of what my fave is about it is the opposite when someone wants to almost crush the creative soul of
Mm,
the the story that we grew up trying to tell, and all of a sudden you finally got it in you to tell it, and then somebody crushes it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's mine.
Yes. You never know who really needs to read your story.
Right,
And
right.
I'll tell you, and I will point myself up being the way I grew up. I don't know, ladies, if I
Mm,
am alive without Tolkien and Lewis.
right, right.
Um, Again, my faith in God. Okay, I'm not going to press that here, but I was given a book in my darkest hours as a
Mhm.
Yeah,
child,
yeah.
and those stories gave me hope. So, with again in that, I will encourage any indie author, any traditional publisher, any author.
Mm,
Please, 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 you have no idea what your story does.
right,
It just
right.
may save somebody because it saved me. It really
Mhm,
did. It really did. I don't know what I would have done without having those heroes,
right,
those
right,
ones that said, "Hey, Terry, you're gonna make it," and I did. And I even wrote.
right.
Goes to show you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people would be able to relate to that little bit of escape and happiness and hope that they got
Mhm.
from stories when they were going through difficult times. So yeah, I love what you just said. But yes, we do want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your book and
Sure.
where we can find you online. You mentioned a website, so
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
my the series that I'm writing is called The Chronicles of the Archangels. It is a dark fantasy, no spice. It is. I went with the classic good versus evil, light versus darkness, sword
Mm.
sorcery, um, and it. I wanted to tell other than morally gray characters. I really want to get back to the classic, almost knight in shining armor type thing
Mm.
because I hadn't seen it in a while, and I go, no, this is my favorite type of story. So uh, my characters are 12 priests. They're my heroes, and they have 12 hand-eye female characters with them, and they go off, and one of the 12 betrays and lets loose
Mm.
hell itself. So I have a lot of demons in my books and stuff. So that's kind of rough what it is. Again, a story within in that the darkness and light type approach. Um, First book is book one called Betrayal.
Mm.
I'm writing book two called Nightmare, and that is I'm hoping will be out by end of July is the goal, and it looks like I should make it. Um, I can be found on my website, thechroniclesofthearchangels.com. My books, also I'm on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook by Chronicles of Archangels. TikTok is T.L.L Quick. That's which I stole from J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis.
Right.
Really, okay, guys, real quick. It's Terry Lee Leonard Quick. T.L.L Quick. Come on, that's a
Right.
great author name.
It is.
Come
It really
on,
is.
you gotta go with your strength, okay? Um,
Right.
so you'll find me under author T.L.L Quick. That's my author, and that's what my pen is, and so you can find by that. Um, it's on Amazon, also KU. It is now available on Kobo, iBooks, Barnes and Noble online. Um, I'd like to try to get it in Barnes and Noble just to say I have a book in Barnes and Noble. That would
Right.
be kind of cool.
All of
So
us.
working
Yeah.
on that one.
All of us working on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's where you can find me. Again, it'll be a 5 book series, and if you like I said, the Lord of the Rings type of stuff, or any of that, any within a dark fantasy twist to it, I
Mm.
think you're going to like my book. I do, however, be prepared. I do unalive some of my heroes. Just kind of throwing that out.
Oh yeah. I mean
I do.
that
I
might
do.
appeal to
Oh,
some people though.
I do. And sometimes I actually like, oh, that was so bad of me. I got to tell you this real quick, Miracle.
Right.
I wrote a scene where I unalived one of my characters, and I wrote it, and I'm real excited. My wife comes up with, Terry, what are you doing? And I had to stop, and I had to literally stand up, back away from my laptop. I go, oh, hon, look what I just wrote. I can't believe I wrote that.
Right. How can I be
Man,
so
that's
cruel?
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Twisted. Oh my gosh. I just unalived a character that I wanted, I hope you fell in love
Right.
with, and yet
Right.
really point the hatred to my antagonist though. It's all my
Right.
antagonist's fault. That's how I'm saying. I'm saying right there.
You're washing your hands of it, yes.
That's right. It's all his fault. I had nothing.
Right, right, right.
Hey, ladies, thank you so much for taking time
Oh,
um,
it's been such a
to talk
pleasure.
about this topic. It really is. Keeping characters true are important, but keeping the story true. And thank you for reaching out to indie authors
Yeah.
because there's so much beauty out there.
Yes. Thank you to everyone listening along. And remember, there's always more than one way up a mountain. If you're interested in being on our show, you can find us at the T.L.L Show on social media, or email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all. Have a good evening.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach, and can be found at hijinksrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to 4, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks and see you next time.